History seldom opens with a shout. Most days it mutters, turning pages no one hears. Yet, now and then, a single will rises above every heartbeat and forces the centuries to bleed. This story follows 9 such ascents, men who painted maps the color of dried blood and taught the world how fragile its own pulse could be. Power by itself is immoral, a river, a storm, a spark. Only intention makes it monstrous. Across empires and ideologies, the tyrants we meet share 3 traits: devotion to an idea larger than life, a machinery of fear, and an arithmetical disregard for human breath. Together those traits forged kill counts so vast that scholars still argue over decimals in the millions. At the start, remember every number here once walked, laughed, and dreamed. Statistics are merely the tombstones of those whose names we never learned. Our first descent takes us to the equatorial mists of the Congo Free State, a private possession unimaginably profitable to one European monarch. Leopold II never saw most villages he destroyed, but his quotas ruled them like iron ghosts. Rubber vines meant wealth. Failure meant chopped hands presented to overseers as proof bullets were not wasted. Entire regions emptied, some by flight, many by death, all by terror. Best estimates placed the toll near 10 million. A missionary wrote that the jungle echoed with the silence of villages without drums, a silence more chilling than any scream. Next, the snowbound empire of Soviet Russia, where one man turned ideology into ice. Stalin's collectivization shattered peasant life, livestock slaughtered in defiance, grain seized for export, famine stalking Ukraine. 4 million perished in that Holodomor alone. Soon after came show trials, secret police quotas, and Gulag archipelagos strung across Siberia like barb beads on a rosary of despair. Entire ethnicities were uprooted overnight and dumped beside frozen rail sidings to learn the geography of exile. By the time the Generalissimo's embalmed body lay beneath Kremlin lights, an estimated 25 million hopes had been extinguished, some by bullet, others by cold, and many more by bureaucratic ink. If tyranny is theater, Hitler mastered its stagecraft. Torchlit processions, colossal banners, orchestrated radio chorales, the Reich resembled an enormous set piece designed to drown skepticism. But behind the pageantry hummed an industrial apparatus calibrated for annihilation. Jews first, then Roma, political opponents, and the disabled were cataloged as inventory for death camps whose chimneys blurred dawn across occupied Europe. 6 million Jews disappeared into that smoke, alongside millions of civilians from Warsaw to Thessaloniki and prisoners of war on every front. Cities such as Stalingrad became meat grinders of conscripted youth. Entire ghettos were starved, then incinerated. When Berlin finally fell, its rubble did not conceal the echo of 17 million civilian deaths, each a note in a dirge composed by ideology, technology, and meticulous obedience. On the eastern edge of Asia, the promise of a people's republic morphed into a cataclysm measured by empty rice bowls. Mao's great leap forward demanded smelting furnaces built in peasant courtyards, stripping villages of tools while harvest rotted. Famine followed with biblical vengeance. 30 million deaths in 4 years, families selling children for handfuls of grain that never arrived. As hunger subsided, the Cultural Revolution ignited, a war on memory and expertise. Youthful Red Guards smashed temples, harassed teachers, and renamed seasons. Libraries burned beneath slogans about purity. True numbers slide between 40 and 45 million, making Mao the single most lethal ruler in human history. The paradox is stark. A revolution promising equality ended by making starvation the great equalizer. While superpowers squared off, smaller nations learned tyranny by apprenticeship. In Cambodia, Pol Pot declared year zero and marched city dwellers into jungles to farm with memories instead of plows. 1 in 4 Cambodians, about 1.7 million, never returned. Not far away, Ethiopia's Mengistu launched Red Terror, labeling teenagers counter-revolutionaries and leaving their bodies as street warnings. Famine compounded fear, dragging perhaps 1.5 million into unmarked graves. Meanwhile, Uganda's Idi Amin styled himself conqueror of the British Empire, yet conquered mostly his own people. Opponents were fed to crocodiles or dumped into the Nile by soldiers giggling at reflected moonlight. Roughly 300,000 Ugandans died while global media chuckled at Amin's outlandish uniforms, proof that ridicule can coexist with horror. These 3 dictatorships show that ideological compass points, left, right, Pan-African, matter less than the shared thrill of unchecked decree. Bloodlines, too, can petrify into shackles. In North Korea, Kim Il-sung forged an autarkic cult that survived him. Famine in the 1990s, euphemized as the arduous march, killed between 1 and 3 million. Photos smuggled across the Yalu River revealed children with matchstick limbs scavenging railroad ballast for kernels fallen from freight cars. Kim Jong-il inherited both throne and indifference, perfecting gulags where entire families mine coal until lungs surrender. Across Asia's western deserts, Saddam Hussein erected a secular republic chained to his paranoia. 8 years of war against Iran consumed 500,000 soldiers. Chemical clouds over Halabja murdered 5,000 Kurds in a single noon. By 2003, internal purges, 2 wars, and sanctions worsened. Shortages had filled as many as 1 million graves. Both regimes taught the same lesson. When power heredity combines with modern surveillance, cruelty can outlive the man who authored it. Totals now exceed 100 million, yet the arithmetic remains abstract until we translate it into lost lullabies, skipped heartbeats, and futures never imagined. Strip away uniforms and propaganda, and 3 mechanisms stand exposed. First, a cult of personality that demands worship before questioning. Statues replace saints, and history textbooks turn into scriptures. Second, control of information, newspapers neutered, radios jammed, journalists exiled, so the tyrant's version of reality monopolizes daylight. Third, weaponized fear, secret police at midnight, show trials at noon, public executions at dusk. Break one pillar, and dictatorship trembles. Shatter all 3, and liberty has room to breathe. The burden of prevention falls on every generation. Free presses, independent courts, stubborn academics, and relentless witnesses form society's immune system. Technology helps. Satellites map mass graves. Smartphones live stream abuses. Blockchain archives testimony. Yet technology is neutral. The same code can surveil or liberate. Ultimately, the heaviest responsibility rests on conscience. The quiet refusal to look away when power sharpens its knives. Remember the echo of the opening lines. History can whisper or howl. We decide whether to listen early or far too late. The dictators we have named, Leopold, Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, Mengistu, Idi Amin, the Kims, Saddam, serve as flares in night sky, warning of reefs ahead. May their crimes animate our vigilance, not our despair. May their victims' silence remind us that speech, though fragile, is humanity's first defense. And may the next century find fewer monuments to single wills and more to shared dignity.